Welcome to this very first MUSE conversation. I am so excited and honored to welcome you into a co-created space with the beautiful Amy Webb. Amy is someone who I crossed paths with a few years ago and has been someone that has inspired my path, my heart, and my work. Her embodiment to what she teaches and what she writes and the spaces she creates is an integrity that just inspires me to believe more in humanity's awakening. So, Amy Webb is the founder of the Anxiety to Freedom Project. She is an energy medicine practitioner and meditation mentor. After a traumatic and emotionally abusive relationship that devastatingly ended 10 years ago, Amy went down the rabbit hole of yoga, meditation, and alternative therapies to heal her deepest traumas and realized that she had a gift at mastering her emotions. She left her marketing career to become a yoga teacher and certified energetic medicine practitioner, and 5 years on is now working with people struggling with anxiety and stress-related conditions. She has realized some very core patterns in how she supports her clients towards emotional freedom and is now solely focused on empowering high-achieving women to free anxiety and emotional overwhelm. I am excited for you to tune in, to carve out some sacred space for yourself to listen to our raw and very unfiltered dialogue today, and may it gift you with inspiration, nourishment, and invitations for you to return to the center of yourself and embrace all of you. All right. So welcome to MUSE Conversations. I am super excited to have our very first guest, the beautiful Amy Webb. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. It's an honor.
The honor's mine too. So what we wanted to do and how I want to hold these conversations in a really raw, heartfelt, human way is to just drop in. These conversations for me are to be unfiltered, sacred, really human, and to create that sacred container like I know Amy does as well in her work. We like to create the capacity and the vortex for that to take place. So if you're listening, Amy and I are about to close our eyes down, and if it's safe for you to do so, I invite you to gently close your eyes down. And just take a deep heart-centered breath, breathing in through the nose, exhaling out the mouth. And I just invite you to invoke your soul to meet you here in this space. Allow yourself to muse with the sensations and the heart and the wisdom of your soul as you breathe her or him into your entire being. Creating your own intention for this dialogue, whether it be mine and Amy's intention or what you wish to receive from listening to this conversation. Allow yourself to breathe that into your body, traveling from your mind and into your heart. And as Amy and I open up this sacred container between us so that we engage with heartfelt service to serve and impact not only our listeners, but each other and ourselves. We call upon our guides, the star people, the cosmos. We ask Mama Earth to ground and hold us. We call upon the birds and the bees and the trees, the earth, the wind, the fire and the water. Just allow yourself to breathe and receive the wisdom, knowing that we are held, we are seen, and we are loved. Trusting that what is meant to be created in this space will be created. Taking a deep breath in Exhaling out. All right. Oh, I needed that. That felt good.
Magic in the air, absolutely.
So I was talking to Amy quickly before we press record, and both Amy and I are advanced soul center practitioners. So I tuned into our soul centers before we jumped on, and it was the heart and the expression center that came through in both the yang aspect, which is the more masculine structured side, which is super cool. So I just want to place that in this space by expressing those affirmations. I radiate pure light. It flows endlessly from the source of who I am. And my heart overflows with the light of who I am. And you would have heard the introduction about Amy before getting to this part of the podcast, but Amy is one of the most embodied, soulful, anchored, and wholehearted practitioners I have ever met. She just oozes compassion and has both that mind to body integration in such a soulful way that it's safe and it's held. So to start, Amy, what inspires you, my friend?
Thank you. I'm just fully taking a minute to receive that in. My eyes are already getting teary, so I know this is going to be a powerful conversation. Oh, what inspires me? So much inspires me about becoming more of who we really are. It's been such an interesting time, 2020, for everyone and for me, absolutely. And I think what it's done is just brought that presence into how important it is for us to become who we really are at this time. And what I feel like that's about is like you know, the most beautiful message that's come through with radiating our heart expression. Our willingness and our ability to actually express what's deep inside our heart is like my jam. That's what I love to show people is possible, and it's what I feel is really needed right now. And it's the thing, like, it's such a crazy time. Year has just made it's like I'm completely consumed all day, every day with how to help people to see that potential that lives inside them. And it's like equally my inspiration, it's as much inspiring as it is like, this has to happen right now. There's this urgency, really allowing myself to express what I need to express. And there's this urgency to helping others to do that as well, because I feel like the more we can let ourselves out, the more we can bring that, you know, innate compassion that lives inside our own hearts out, the more we can see the change happen that we need to see happen. So that's what's inspiring me the most. Like, I really love seeing that glimmer come back to people's eyes, that says, oh my gosh, I'm awake to the potential that exists inside myself. That's like my ultimate inspiration. That's why I create stuff. That's why I'm just, you know, that's why I really try. You know, I really try to show up in my life so that other people can feel my heart. And I'm inspired by the trust that can form, especially in online spaces at the moment, like conversations like this. I'm inspired by the intimacy that's possible when we come together with our hearts really open. Yeah.
I'm just going to like soak that in. And I know that's why we connect. So, well, I really want to say in a sacred way, like it's just a known trust. Amy and I are not predominantly in each other's lives, but I'd love to share just on that, because it was my heart that led me to you. And it was through a traumatic experience that I personally have been healing through in the last 4 years. And Amy and I have shared a mentor and a teacher with the amazing Melissa Sandon. And as I enrolled, Amy was popping out and she lived around the corner. And it was just like this synchronous sliding door moment. And when you said just before potential, if I'm like completely transparent, which we will only be in this space, potentiality was one of the words that moved through me in a session with you. And it was, I think I even was nervous to say it through the session. I'm trying to like go back because I'd actually never written or spoken the word before.
I remember that.
That was powerful. I felt like it came, like, if I'm fully clear, it came all the way through my hand, like, oh, right out through the bottom of my yoni. It was like, whoa, it was like a complete rebirthing and a healing that was so integrative. And you are such a permission slip for potential. And it's like, you can look left and you can look right and say, here, I've got your hand and I'm not competing with you. We're in this together.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. That's, I mean, receiving all of that too. There's just so much to receive already in just a couple of minutes of conversation. But yeah, that potential piece, it's been the most amazing thing for me over the last kind of 4 years of getting started in energy and soul medicine and working in this realm, to see people in that way and to have that permission that I guess I kind of created for myself by stepping into that space, but to have that space to meet people for the very first time and really see what's possible within them, and to see that kind of co-creation that happens, like this dance between us that says, wow, like look at this magic. And so, incredible about just everything to do with what we've been learning in energy and soul medicine, and how it overlaps and kind of weaves with so many other aspects of life, so many different modalities, our yoga, our love for yoga, and how these things kind of tie together. But yeah, that's the most amazing thing, is seeing people that are really, suffering like I was, in really deep trauma and anxieties and stress, and seeing them have this glimmer of who they really are, like that will keep me going in this forever and ever and ever, because there's nothing better than that.
No. And I think one of the things that we really connect on too, and that I know you're super passionate about, is emotional intelligence and emotional freedom. And what I hear through you as I listen, it's like, it's not about thinking. And this is something that's so true for me. I'm like, less thinking, more feeling. And we've been so afraid as human species to like go into the depths of ourselves. Yes. It's almost like, well, what if we get stuck per se? And it's like, no, in that emotion, there is a gateway that opens you to something that you've never met before. So yes. I'd love to hear a little bit about your story, like that awakening through your, trauma and dark times that have birthed you into your potential that you just radiate today.
Aww. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so if we go back, say 10 years from now, I'm 32 now, so around 20 was when things got really deep for me in terms of the trauma that I've faced in my life. Prior to that, I definitely was someone that was more prone to low self-esteem. My parents separated when I was 14, and alcoholism was a thing in our family, and just over time, with different experiences, with not having my dad around, I definitely just dropped in terms of my self-esteem. Mm-hmm. What that did was entice me to be with people in relationship that were not best for me, that did not see my potential, or perhaps did but didn't want me to see it. And I ended up in a really not healthy relationship from about 17 till 21. In that relationship, I experienced manipulation, obsessive behaviors, possessive behaviors, control. I experienced for the first time probably in my life someone that had really deep mental illness, And I didn't at that time understand it. All I wanted to do, because I was always pretty empathetic, was to help that person as much as I could, because I felt like they didn't really have anyone else. Because my self-esteem was pretty low, I kept going back to this person when I had the opportunity to leave. And what I connected with recently when I was rewriting my story was, even though now I'm someone that's, really connected to my feelings, at that time there were so many alarm bells going off within my body, but I was really good at ignoring the feelings that I had inside my body, because one of my drivers was to be successful. And I was a really high achiever. So I was like, I went to uni straight after school. I then got my job, and then I moved to the city, and I was really wanting to be successful. And that was the way that I thought I could gain more self-worth. So at the same time that I was experiencing this really terrible, unhealthy relationship, I didn't want to feel what was really going on, and I didn't want to be really present with it, because I wanted to try to grow myself in this other way. So I had this kind of push and pull. I knew it was wrong, but I didn't want to really confront it until I needed to confront it. And I tried many times to leave the relationship, and he was really good at keeping me there, keeping me manipulated, and keeping me in his trap, if you will.
Yeah.
And eventually what happened was it was a really confusing situation. He started to use his own life as a way to keep me in his clutches. And unfortunately, after a drunken night, when I was walking home and he was following me home, he actually attempted to take his own life in front of me. And through that experience, I still to this day don't know how I called the ambulance and managed to get them there within the time frame that I did. But he went on life support and he survived. But obviously that was completely traumatic for myself, for him, for my mum, who rushed down to kind of pick me up from the ground in complete shock. But that experience was so confusing, and I had so much shame and so much guilt and so much embarrassment. And I lost a lot of friends that didn't really understand what was happening. And he proceeded to stalk me for a couple of years after that. So that was a really dark time for someone, 20, 21 years old, no idea how to heal from that, no language around how to heal from it, and no one in my family that had ever been to therapy, to see a psychologist. No one was practicing yoga. I didn't have any kind of spiritual context at that time. All I knew was that I wanted to be an empowered person. I still knew that then, even in the middle of such darkness and fear that I wasn't going to be safe. I still had something inside me that said, you know what, you're going to be all right, and you have to get through this. And from there, the next few years, I experienced a lot of anxiety and panic. And again, I didn't really understand what was happening, but my body was reacting to the trauma that I'd experienced. And I stayed busy in my work. I still kind of fed that success part of what I wanted. But then eventually, once I was free of that relationship and in a new relationship, I then started to realize I had some things I needed to heal. That relationship ended after about 3 years. And even though it was really a relatively normal relationship, I knew the first thing I needed to do after that relationship was go and see a counselor and start to work through the self-loathing that I was feeling, because I just didn't see that I needed to go and work that deeply on myself. And I was still pretty embarrassed about the experience. I didn't feel like I was someone that should have had that experience, and I was still coming to grips with it. So then as I started to move into like 22, 23, 24, I started to practice yoga. and meditate and journal. And then that self-reflection started to really wake me up. And I met some really great people to support me, a chiropractor that was also a kinesiologist. And I started to find myself going into really deep experiences in yoga and getting really curious about energy and starting to connect the dots between my feelings inside my body and the empowerment that I knew was possible for myself. So I started to turn a little more inwards and focus less on the outer kind of exterior success stuff that I had been creating in my career. And I went to yoga teacher training, and in yoga teacher training, that's when I saw like that, like I mentioned before, that glimmer of transformation that you see in people's eyes. That was the first time I really saw that. I saw it in myself, and then I saw it reflected in other people. And I just had this major like wake up moment of, oh my God, we don't actually have to stay the same. We can actually change. We don't have to stay so attached to our story and our pain as well. We can actually move through it and become better for it. So I just had all these like wake up moments, and I realized that the anxiety that I had been feeling was like shaking me awake. And until I was getting myself in the position to be supported by people that could help me to drop into my body, I wasn't going to have that real deep fulfillment in my life that I knew that I really wanted and that I knew was possible. So then just sparked like this, never-ending journey deeper into alternative therapies, natural therapies. I just really was drawn to how to create a different state inside my body. And I think I really owe that to yoga, meditation, and at the time, this awesome kinesiologist that just kind of really opened my eyes.
Yeah.
Then here we are.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. My intention for this audio space, if we will, was that we get to the human of the potential, right? And I'm such an advocate for pain to transcend to power and purpose, and coming from the back seat to the front seat of our own life. And I know for me, I think I wrote about it last week, like my muse for such a long time, and I wasn't even aware in it, was my darkness, because it became the comfort zone. And that traumatic event for me when I was a teenager then propelled in numerous events, and I was just like, oh, this is just life. And I became quite a martyr at being really good and being really strong and holding this face of like, oh wow, and I created identity in that. Until I really think, even for me in my work, it's only in the last 2 years that I've popped out and gone, like, where's the fun?
Yeah.
And the joy. And I really felt that in you. Like you were, the word curious is one of my most favorite words in the dictionary. Like, to be curious with what's coming up and through my body. And I don't have to say that I have anxiety and label myself as that for the rest of my life. And that experience that I went through, like my heart, that's so traumatic. And it's also super powerful because it's created this power within you that's grown your wings.
Absolutely.
Right? Like that to me is just like, yeah, like I'm more inspired to hear the grit and the grace in that story and go, wow, like that's the nitty gritty of who you are and why you're so passionate. So thank you for sharing that. And yoga too, right? I remember my yoga teacher training, and it sounds silly, but it was real. It was like child's pose to downward dog. Like it was like this beautiful chakra session. And it was like child's pose to downward snot, and everything just like wow, like came out of my nose, and there was all these tears and emotions hitting the yoga mat, and I was like, and it didn't have to be hard. I was like, but afterwards I was like, all right, now it's time for a smoothie.
Yeah, absolutely. So many moments like that, and I had so many giggles with people I just met, and I mean, there's so much liberation in people coming together to do that kind of work, right?
Yeah.
Which is why I think we both love what we're doing and why we're so passionate about it, because when you come together and you tell some really real stories, like even if you're the person to tell your story first so that it creates a ripple effect of other people sharing their real stuff, it's like, that's something that I find so beautiful. Like really when people let the guard down and they feel safe enough to actually say, you know what, this is what happened in my life, and this is what I'm willing to move through now. I guess that's the difference. It's like when you get to a place where you can share what you've been through, and at the same time you can say, you know what, that is what I've been through, and this is where I'm going. This is who I am. There's this like trajectory for that person that I'm not going to stay victim to what happened. I'm actually going to use this and harness this and move forward.
And I think that's something that you said was super powerful and like really landed for me, was around changing, right? Like I say this a lot, like change is guaranteed. It is the one thing I know that through my life and experiences, it's become quite like, and I get a little bit excited, and I have to like sometimes have to pull myself back because it became a bit of a survival mechanism to be in a big change, to re-find myself. But it's true, like I think about life as the riverbanks and a river, and we often hold on to that rope on the side of the river and we just don't want to let go, and we get rope burn. And when we choose to change, and through trauma especially, our lenses change, right? Like the veils lift, or some come down because we're growing through something. And you touched on how you lost friends, and relationships shift. And I feel that, like for me, I know that's true. It's a real thing, because as you come out of that, if someone's still looking at you through who you were 2 years ago, there's not an aligned match.
Yeah.
And when you try and fit in with how you used to be, it's like you're abandoning your soul. And that took me a little bit to really like try on, try not. And then it was almost, again, back to a feeling. It was an embodied state of like, Tara, like, no, you're either a soul yes or a soul no, and full stop.
Yeah. And once you I know this for myself anyway, like once I learned how to actually feel what I was feeling, when I knew something wasn't right for me, it's literally like there's no stepping forward. That's where it is now. I actually can't proceed with friendships that don't feel right, with partnerships or collaborations or anything really in my life that doesn't feel right, because I've got a practice of moving things through my body, not just through my head or through my thought patterns, but through my body. That it's sometimes I wish I could do that, but it's just not actually, it can't happen now because there's that deep relationship with my body.
Yeah, no, I completely resonate. And I love that, because that has been something that 2020 has gifted me. And, being, and this is why I wanted to like touch on experience with these conversations, because even though we hold space, and even though we're qualified and passionate about what we do, we're still human and are growing and learning through our own cycles. And for me, I know 2020, I was like, I thought I'd mastered releasing the people pleaser muscle, and I've lifted that mask this year. Like isolation was a beautiful gift for me in that way. And I was like, oh, she's been in the driver's seat of a lot, like saying yes when I mean no, and it can be as simple, this is not to sound harsh, but like going to coffee when I just wanted to sit and write with my book, or sitting in the sun and filling myself up with a cup of tea, and I would go to a lunch, or embrace a collaboration that didn't really light me up. Not because there's anything wrong with that person. It just wasn't for me.
Yes, I can relate completely.
Yeah. And I think for me, 2020 has taught me, we touched on this before we pressed record, like, again, change is inevitable. And releasing I think even as empowered soulful women, the inner control can still be a thing. And I know that's been one of mine. Like, I'm really good at helicoptering a lot of things, which I know your business has grown too. And I'm like, as my team's grown, it's like, pull back, trust. Same with being a mom. It's like, I have to embrace my children with the same beliefs that I have about myself. So they have their own path. If I keep trying to control that, I'm interrupting the trajectory of their life.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's been huge. It's funny you say that, because I think it was only yesterday I had this like wake up moment, which happens often, where I was like, oh, wow, you're really trying to control here. And I guess the difference now, that I would say, like, just as a bit of inspiration for people that maybe feel like you're just getting used to how to feel what you're feeling in your body, and you might not feel that kind of intuitively connected. I feel there's things that pop up for me out of the blue that I need to learn again and again and again. But the difference is now, when that happens, there's like this little chuckle with myself. It's a curiosity. It's not like a shaming moment. It's like, oh my gosh, I didn't see that. And it's kind of a little bit fun. It turns into being a little bit fun, not always. There's definitely some really hard moments, but it can become fun to get a bit lighthearted with yourself around the things you're not seeing that you're doing as a human. Like,
because if we were done, then what would, I completely resonate, because I've noticed this level of awareness within myself, and it's not placing myself on some kind of pedestal. It's like, oh, and I'm like, I can have fun with that and not make myself wrong or right, and just be like, cool, this is a little piece of, a textbook of Tara for you to grow and learn through.
exactly.
How much you hold on to that is up to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I mean, there's a lot, I feel the sense that there's a lot of people that want to explore an awakening or a transformational journey at the moment that are really kind of new to it. And I think one of the things that I'm definitely focused on is how to remain very relatable and raw and real around what happens in my life. I use my own examples all the time, not to lower who I am in any way, or to not be seen as an expert, but I just don't think it's helpful to not be really honest about just the realness of emotions that we feel, experiences that we go through, little glitches in our brain that I know when I get my period, for example, my brain changes completely, and I can not be as emotionally stable as I am at other times of the month, and that's just where it's at. So I think that there's a real beauty in just being very human, and I think it's almost like a requirement as a practitioner to
feel that
shift.
Yeah. And it's because, and to know that you're all of it. Like, we're all of it. Like, no one gets to this certain stage in life and just breezes through. I know for me, one of the things I'd love to share on this conversation is grief. Like, yesterday was a birthday of someone that's no longer in my life. So for me and my brother, we were like aware that the date was coming up. And I witnessed myself throughout the week leading up to that, but with this like lightness. And probably 3 years ago, I would have been like, oh, it's still here. As opposed to this year, I'm like, it's really beautiful that I can feel this and send this person love and be grateful for this journey and trust in my own path. And if I'm sad, that's okay. Like, I get to be sad. And I've noticed too, one of the things that I've witnessed within my clients and myself is I had this conversation with my dad and he's like, are you okay? It was a couple of weeks ago. And I was like, yeah, when stuff comes up now, rather than avoiding it, because I'm human too, I get curious with it and go, okay, so what is this? And if I need to purge or cry or whatever it is, I allow that. And then I find that it shifts much quicker. And it's become a beautiful practice where there's nothing wrong with feeling what we've kind of highlighted, if we go back to emotions, as negative or dark emotions. The contrast and the spectrum of all emotions are relevant to your human experience, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Grief has such a beautiful gift to give us. Sadness, grief, rage, anger, like all of it's informing us of where we're at. And it's an opportunity to deepen our relationship with ourselves again and again and again. That's not to say that it's easy. You know, sometimes come up for me out of the blue and I don't understand them, but I know the process that I need to go through. So part of me can be going, no way, I don't want to do this today. Like, where did this come from? But another part of me, the higher part of me, the true part of me knows exactly what I need to do. And I'll make, you know, most of the time now, I will take myself into a quiet space in our house and I will meditate and I'll move through what I need to go through, even if I don't want to, even if there's a part of me that doesn't want to. And I think that's the practice, isn't it?
Yeah. And I mean, it's cliche, but what we resist persists, and it's true. And the gateway and the driver gets to be yourself when you cultivate that trust, knowing that you can get through the other side. Like breath work for me, like becoming a breath work practitioner was and still is, and I use breath work a lot with my clients, but it's the thing that I resist still the most because it is the biggest catalyst. And I'll be like, no, my control freak's like, I'm holding on, like I get it. And so I share that with my clients, like this, I get it, this ain't easy, you got a lot of friction. This between you and I is safe because I too resist levels of change within my body. Like none of us are like Om Shanti complete.
Absolutely right. And I mean, what I will say with that is the hardest moments that I've had this year, the moments where the emotion's been really, really intense, when I've moved through it, and that's seriously moving through that emotion physically, emotionally, energetically, that has allowed me to create content for my work. So whether you're someone that's going that path or you just want to express yourself more clearly, write in your journal, start to create a little more in your life, those big experiences are gold for you to become inspired, actually. You know, I get so inspired after big moments like that.
Yeah, let's go there, because to me that's like, and I've seen that even with releasing the podcast and those words in the intro then became an embodied, or have become an embodied mantra to my life. And before I released the sacred activism guided musing, I was moving through a lot of emotion that was, could be deemed as quite dark, like anger and resentment towards some things that I was seeing and feeling collectively. And then it was shifted into this inspiration. So how do you feel intention? What's your relationship like with intention? Because to me, you've made a huge shift too. Like you've created a whole new project. I don't want to forget mentioning that beautiful project. And then now you're the conduit, right? Like you're the beacon that's birthing that through you. The intention's there. So you, catch yourself going, oh, am living through this because this will help XYZ, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in over the last 4 years, I guess my work was more general before creating the Anxiety to Freedom project at the start of this year. And in a way, I had a whole lot of resistance around moving this way to being more, I guess, of an expert within the anxiety space. But I knew it was literally a download. It had to happen. It was one of those things that I felt in my body, and I saw what was happening with my client base, and I knew that I was someone that's been assigned to this particular project to work at the emotional level with people, and it's kind of a little scary because this all came just before COVID hit, and the timing was just really bizarre. But yeah, going through this rework of my business, my whole entire business this year has literally felt like blood, sweat and tears. I've spent days laying on the ground crying and allowing myself to process the emotion that needs to move through me. But I've seen this since I started this work, that those moments when I've been laying on the ground processing what's moving through me, even when I have no idea at a logical level what's happening, every single time I've either seen it reflected in a one-on-one client session, exactly what I felt in my body is then mirrored in that client session, and what I went through is allowing me to hold space for someone to go through what they're going through. I've seen that happen again and again. So this year, as I've created my signature online program, my group program, every module I created, I had to go through the thick mud of what I was teaching in the thing. Yeah. Which is amazing, because when I look back, it's like, oh wow, this is like really good content. It has to be, because it literally moved through my body. It's my direct experience with it. Sometimes I hate that, to be honest, because it really hurts to be someone that's going through it like that. But on the other side of it, I couldn't be more like inspired and lit up by the fact that I get to create something from my own experience, not from something I'm learning from a textbook. It's literally from inside myself. And if that helps one person, like that just makes me cry with so much compassion, because I know how it feels. I don't really deeply know how it feels, and I know you're the same, Tara. Like it's,
and that's what I've really felt, that in your presence, in the sense of what I feel is really called for right now in humanity is for us to be what we wish to see, and that for me, and I feel like you resonate, is a journey from our heads into our hearts. And when we're in the field of, you know, creating transformation or healing, that's deep work. And to not just speak what we've learned, but to embody it from the inside out, and weave that real human aspect into it. Like, this is not all pretty. Like, there's snot and tears and ugly crying, and all of it is part of what I believe we're all being called to, like, really almost like, I want to be like this vessel here, this heart has such a magnetic resonance that we've just neglected, and that's okay. We're now moving into an era, I pray, that is going to honor her, you know, wisdom so much more, and it requires deep work. So I really honor you for being embodied in that. And you would see too that with your clients and what you're delivering in that project, it's sticking, it's moving through them, because the energetic capacity that you've created is real.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this is the year that I've felt more purposeful than ever in my work. And I'm grateful that 2020 has delivered itself in the way that it has, so that so many of us can get back into our heart space. And I feel it happening, you know, I really do. I see it and I feel it. And I mean, it's like you said at the beginning, Tara, it's like ripping back my tendency to want to hide myself, because I'm like, I got to connect with people. People are looking and searching and aching for heart connection, whether they have the words for that or not at the moment.
Yeah.
And that's why anxiety is such a huge driver for me, because it's a catalytic moment. Anxiety is becoming all-consuming. It's a massive wake-up call moment. If you step into that moment, it will change your life. If you're working with the right people in the right way and you're investing in the right way, in a safe way, then you can absolutely move through that gateway and pop out the other side. And I guess the thing with that, like, that I love to speak to and that I think is really important is this isn't about eliminating anxious feelings. It's like, this is about learning how to be with any feeling. And once you can be with anxiety as it arises, you massively dilute the trigger and the fear around the anxiety. And through that doorway, even when you feel uncomfortable on the other side, you've built a deeper relationship with yourself. So when I feel uncomfortable, it doesn't make me feel any less love for myself now.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it doesn't take away from who I am. But what I love showing other people is, like, once you start to move through that initial doorway, expect things are going to come up, expect that you're going to be triggered, expect that you're going to have to change some things in your life, expect that you're going to probably be on this journey for a while.
I say that a lot too, right? You can't get off.
Yeah.
You're on. Yeah.
It's a moment to move through a particular doorway that you'll probably be moving through for the rest of your life. It'll just look very different.
Yeah.
It'll be a thing. And it's funny because even though my business and the name of my business is the Anxiety to Freedom Project, it's really pretty amazing that once you start on the journey, once you make a decision to move into working with me in any way that people work with me, we talk less and less about anxiety, because it actually shifts very quickly once the willingness has been made to actually work on what's there at a deeper level. So I think you mentioned this at the start as well, like, we don't need to be identifying with anxiety or any uncomfortable experience that you've ever had in your life. We can actually keep moving through. This is about moving through. This is about momentum.
Consistently.
Further into your heart space.
Yeah. And I mean, I have so much I could say on that, because there's the investment piece. Like, once you invest in yourself to loosen a grip and open wider, like, shifts automatically happen. And then I think that the intention of the space that you're holding, having moved through it yourself, then shifts them too. Like, it's just like this co-creative space of emotion. And it's interesting because I had what you would label before jumping on here, like a little bit of like a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of nervousness. And I witnessed it come up from last night. Yeah. And what I found really beautiful is, because when I was young, I was born with a heart condition, and which is so interesting. But anyway, born with a heart condition, a lot changed for me around the age of 12. And so my parents took me to the heart specialist a lot, looking for something wrong. And for the majority of my life, aside from one incident, my heart condition has been what they call benign. So it's there, you can hear it, but it's not doing me any harm.
Yeah.
And never did anyone like suggest, because I had such condition, that it was anxiety. Like, and it's been something that I've learned through my own life. Like, the chest pain wasn't because my heart was sick. Like, it's because I was holding in emotions and holding myself back and in a state of fear. And now I welcome that in with, I'm sure you work through with your clients, like, okay, for me, landing in this heart space with you, it wasn't a fear. It was like, this is going to be beautiful and a growth edge and growth in the exchange. And I'm so willing to be in that. And what I've learnt with my anxiety is often it comes up when I'm willing to grow. And so my ego and my anxiety are like besties, and they're like, you can stay over here. Whereas now, which is a practice, right? Built over many years, my soul says, no, thank you. I appreciate what you're trying to do, and I'm going this way. Yeah.
Oh yes, that's so beautiful. It's so funny because I wrote about something like this in my course that I've created that people have been going through at the first half of this year. Just about that, like that sense of, and you said it too, that sense of not being in the driver's seat, like the anxiety and the ego, they go together and they dance together and they want to keep you in the back seat.
And like in the front, you've like got, you're not in front, you're not in the play, you're not having fun, you're not in the control or the, like, even the freedom of who you really are becoming, because you're letting it drive you. Yeah,
but I completely agree. When I feel like I'm going up towards an edge or an uncomfortable, like out of the comfort zone experience, I'll get that feeling too. Now it's an invitation to deeper into it, instead of a feeling of like I won't be safe. And that's something that we're reframing in our online program. It's about finding the space to become safe. So you don't necessarily feel comfortable, but you feel safe. You feel safe in yourself to go towards discomfort, to become more of who you are, instead of feeling like there's, you literally can't go forward because you don't feel safe. And that's something that I think is important, and something that I do hear that clients that have been to clinical psychologists might feel like has been a bit lacking is feeling forced to just get over something. And that there's a process to dropping into feeling safe in your body, to really sit with and be with your feelings. And again, I say that from experience. I know how unsafe I felt. I had been through very unsafe experiences in my life. So when my body triggered that unsafety, no way could I like force myself to get to another place in that moment. I needed to wait until I had fostered a safety with myself before I could go there.
Oh, like I completely resonate. I was writing on the weekend in my journal about like, you're exactly where you need to be. And when I say you're exactly where you need to be, that means business, self relationships around you. Because I too, you may resonate with this. I was we were talking about this before we went live, but I was such a high achiever too. Like that's my blueprint. And so that is like, I've felt up until the last couple of years has been a masculine driver in my body. As feminine as I am in the work that I do, it's still masculine, really driven in the front. And pulling that back meant that, because I consistently through my journey would just throw myself in situations and like, rip the Band-Aid off, right? And I'd re-traumatize myself. Like it would be quite a cathartic experience. And then what I witnessed, I became almost addicted to those really hardcore situations because I was like transforming. It actually propelled me into more suffering. And now I'm allowing myself and witnessing in my work, like just what you're talking about, like we're right on time. And wherever you are, safety in the discomfort, the way you worded that before was just divine, is like exactly what the world is cultivating, what our own inner worlds are cultivating. And when we're not looking at everybody else's lane and just our own lane, then we can be in the natural becoming of who we are, knowing that we're exactly on time. Like for you with your business, birthing Anxiety to Freedom Project in 2020, like that is exactly right on time. I've made huge shifts in my business, and I've had conversations where people are like, are you okay? Like everything is like shifted. And I'm like, it was a full, I'm right in alignment with my soul, unlike ever before. And I'm not making a story.
Yeah.
Right? Like I just trust. But if I'd done that without all the experiences that I had before this year, then I wasn't right on time. Like every moment, I don't know. I think you know what I'm getting at. Every moment is right on time. Yeah.
Yes. And that's like, I mean, that's something that I've got to be with every day this year because, same as you, Tara, I had to rip down everything I'd created in my work and start again. Plus, I'd moved to another state. Everything's different. And so there's this real patience that has to be cultivated again and again and again. And I completely relate with the attraction or like, what's that word? Enticement of wanting to keep investing in retreats and workshops and with practitioners that can help me to just rip something off so that I can do it faster, maybe go do some plant medicine, get this transformation happening faster.
Yeah.
But the beautiful thing of coming back to the anxiety space, which is something I thought personally I had overcome, coming back to that and humbling myself to make a really legitimate case for why it's important that we work at that level of anxiety and heal at our emotional level before we go forward. It's been the most humbling thing ever, and it's just helped me to accept where I'm at. Like it really has helped me to just go, you know what, this is where it needs to be. So thanks for reflecting that, because I needed to get that message today as well. Like this is okay where it is right now, and that's for all of the listeners too. Wherever you're at right now, whatever you're just like exploring or feeling like you want to kind of test out in terms of the alternative therapies or meditation even, if you're just at the beginning, that's exactly where you need to be. That's really beautiful.
Yeah, and I was saying this to a client just last week. Like I said to her, you know, your home play this week is 1 minute. Like she's like, but you have all these beautiful meditations. And I'm like, so what? Like you need to, we're always in the becoming and the building of the trust and the safety within ourselves. Your home play, meditate, breathe with presence, 60 seconds.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're constantly in this rabbit wheel of like looking for a quick fix and looking at somebody else and be like, your 1 minute is 1 minute that you have committed to yourself, your breath and your presence, and it will grow. But if you destine yourself to 45 minutes and then you highlight that as a failure, then you're beating yourself up when you don't need to be. Like, let's rebuild the trust.
Absolutely. And I mean, a mentor that I listen to that I have just like, she's really helped me to understand how important this point is. I think that we can't quite fathom with our logical mind right now how much trauma and pain exists on the planet. And even if life kind of looks okay externally, you could be going through something deeply unsettling inside yourself. And even 30 seconds, 60 seconds of being in a transformational container or like working with a practitioner, if they rush you too far beyond where you're at in the moment, it could actually be quite unsettling and dangerous even. So I love that we're kind of really honing in on this point around safety, because it's so important that you're working with people that make you feel like you can work at your own pace.
Mm-hmm.
You can be accountable, yeah, but work at your own pace at your own time, because it's pretty normal if you're feeling pretty unsettled internally at this time.
Especially in this time. And I feel like too, when we talk about the journey or our own, I can even see, and you might see this too, like where I ripped the band-aids off, and I was really good at that. I am, 10, 5, 3 years later from all those band-aids, am integrating that into my being now. So, and I can reflect back on those moments or those conversations. Like coming back to my session with you and potentiality, like that was maybe 3 years ago. From there to now, I feel like I'm embodying what came through in that session. Trying to shove and push that in and not allowing myself to be in that journey would be a disservice to myself and my body. And I think that too, one of the things I'd like to touch on with what you've just said is heart, home, humanity, because anxiety, I'm just going to make a presumption, is so heightened across the globe, and naturally so, that we can look at what we're being faced with and feel overwhelmed and like we have no control, which then creates more emotional responses in our body. What I hope through these conversations we've just delivered in this one is that who you be and you're choosing to heal yourself in your time is your biggest work on this earth.
Yeah. And and I hope that we have demonstrated that today as well, that it's totally doable and worth it.
So worth it. And it's all the shades of the rainbow.
Yeah. Even if it really, really challenges you, it'll be the greatest thing you'll ever do. And if you're wondering what you can do for humanity and the state of the planet right now, start there. Take as long as you need, but like start that journey to understanding yourself a little bit more deeply.
So one of the things I wanted to ask you as we like tune into closing this space was one of the things that I really admire in the people that I work with and in the spaces that we hold, that in order to hold such spaces, I believe, the most powerful practitioners allow support. And us too have a tribe of people that build and help us rise ourselves. So I think that's a beautiful human aspect that we can bring into this space with our work, to say like, I'm holding this container for you, and then I lean into this container for myself because I'm human. Like I don't have all the answers. So how do you care for yourself to create and hold the beautiful spaces that you do?
Such an important point. It's only more important now. I feel sometimes like I have this relationship with like a little baby version of who I am inside myself. It sounds a bit weird.
No.
I have this thought sometimes of like holding myself like a little baby. And my nana passed away last year. She pops up now because when I feel that, I can kind of feel my nana with me as if she's holding me too. And it's weird because I'm probably doing my most like powerful work, if in quotations, powerful work. I'm holding a powerful space now. But that little version of me pops up more now than it did before, because there's a safety for me to be with that part of myself. So when I feel that sense of like, there's a little part of me that really needs to be held, it's like and I'm blessed to now be in a relationship that allows this to happen, just like warms my heart every single day. But my partner, I can really be exactly who I am with him, and just having like cuddles with him, having like a masculine cuddle.
Being held.
That's my thing now. It's so interesting because it's not like this massive list of self-care practices I actually do anymore. It's like at the end of the night, being held makes me feel as though I'm washing away. Yeah, so that's a really big part, is not saying that it needs to be an intimate relationship, but having people in your life, just a couple of people that can hold you, that can be with you, that can make you feel that sense of kind of like sitting against a big oak tree, like that solidity of being with someone or with nature in that way is such a big thing for me. I journal a lot, and I journal, again, this feels kind of playful, but I journal to my higher self. Like I get in a dialogue with myself often.
I love talking to myself.
Yeah. And I will when I feel like I'm slipping a little bit with my self-care, I know that I need to get in conversation with myself again. So for me, the self-care practices are very much about connecting back in with me, and making sure that I'm held in a nice container in my relationship, so that I can feel like it's not all on my shoulders. I think that's an important bit.
Yeah, I feel that it's like a nurture and a nourishment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So where can people find your magnificent work?
So my website is anxietytofreedomproject.com. My Instagram handle is anxietytofreedomproject, and Facebook is also the same, Anxiety to Freedom Project. And you can find on my website a free meditation masterclass, which is a great place to just start if you're thinking about how to create safety and you want to just maybe explore this work a little bit more deeply. You can just jump on my website and you'll find that it should pop up for you straight away. So you'll see that there.
That's so amazing. And what would be your 3 tips for moving through anxious emotions to like just bring all that into this closing of this space?
Okay, we've touched on it a lot, but the first one's definitely create a safe space. So my tip would be with that, I've used essential oils for like 5 years. Any earthy oils like frankincense, vetiver, anything that's very grounding. If you're not feeling like you got a safe container in your house, create it with some oils. Put some oils in a diffuser, get them on your body, settle in to a meditation with some essential oils. The other one is, like I just kind of mentioned with my partner Shane, if there's someone in your life that feels safe for you, maybe you can spend a little bit of time with them before you drop into a meditative state or drop into a deeper experience with your emotions. Spend a bit of time with someone that feels safe for you, that you can talk to, that you trust. Sit with them for a little bit. Just be in their place, if that makes sense, even if it's a phone call.
Yeah.
We really need those safe anchors in our life. And I think the third one is, I love my journal. Like, a big part of not being able to drop into the physical sensations in the body is that there's so much happening in the head. So if you can just let your head journal for a little bit and let the thoughts come through, do that for 5 to 10 minutes. Just see what comes through and see how willing you feel to start to drop into a deeper meditation, like the one on my website, or like any of Tara's beautiful meditations, any of those resources that will help to bring you deeper. Journal first and get the stuff out of the headspace, and then see how you go with dropping into any of those kind of tools.
Yeah. Thank you, beautiful. It's so powerful. I call it like the brain dump.
Yeah.
Like dump it on the page, and you often I say it a lot and I'll forever say it. We are who we've been looking for. And through those personal inquiries, whether you're held in someone's sacred container or you create it yourself, you are leaving yourself clues all the time.
Oh, yeah. If you're not a person that journals and you don't feel that way, like, let me tell you, when I first started journaling and I was with my ex-partner, he thought I was crazy for journaling. He seriously thought I was mad. But I'm so glad I started journaling then. I'm so glad I got to know myself through writing. I do it all day.
Same. And sometimes it makes no sense. Sometimes it's a few words. Sometimes it's pages. And it's so sacred.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much for giving us your time, your energy, your heart, and your presence. And I just want to take this moment too to acknowledge you for the work that you are embodying and allowing yourself to create, to put out into the world. It's so deeply needed. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been my absolute pleasure. I love it. Thank you.
Wow.